the Rocket Sports car, of course. So back on row 3 of the grid is Michel Jourdain Jr. Two Mexican drivers, in actual fact. Michel Jourdain Jr. had a fabulous run here 1 year ago, and his countryman there, Adrian Fernandez, he was on the pole 1 year ago. Been struggling a little bit this weekend, but he qualifies. He was 5th fastest yesterday, 6th on the grid. In the morning warm-up this morning, he said the car was bottoming, which is the same problem he had in a race last year. But they're going to raise the car a little bit, and hopefully Adrian will give these fans something to cheer about this afternoon.
Bruno Junqueira in row 4 and also Mario Dominguez. These two gentlemen, very high expectations for both of them. And in row number 5, we have Ryan Hunter-Reay and Tiago Monteiro.
Yeah, the Portuguese driver there for the Fittipaldi team. Back on row 6 of the grid will be the cars of Mario Haberfeld. He's been there or thereabouts for Conquest Racing this weekend. Patrick Lemarie, finally for BK Racing, is making some improvements. Back on row 7, Darren Manning, the Englishman, he had lost 3rd gear in qualifying yesterday. Other than that, he's been towards the sharp end all weekend long. Roberto Moreno, he's struggling in the second of the Herdez cars.
Row 8, Patrick Carpentier and Jimmy Vasser, and also in row 9. Let's take a look at row 9. That's Alex Yoon and Rodolfo Levine.
And finally, at the back of the grid, the second of the Dale Coyne Racing cars, that is Joel Camathias from Switzerland.
Now let's take a look at this entire racetrack. Comment about it. This is a track that is very forgiving, but it also is rather slippery in places.
It is very slippery. It's a very low grip track. It's a very smooth asphalt and not a lot of grip, but it is a great racetrack. Turn 1 there, the right-hander, that's very, very slippery indeed. That's always dangerous at the first corner. Turn 2 is certainly an overtaking opportunity, as is turn 5, as is turn 9, as also is turn 11. So it's a good wide track, it's smooth, it's relatively quick, and it really is a good racetrack.
And summarize an analysis of this entire circuit for us.
Yeah, it's going to be it's a long race for these guys. Look at that, the total shifts at the bottom. That's 3,400 shifts during this race, 40 gear shifts a lap. It's an 85 lap race. They have to make a pit stop at least every 26 laps, so that will make it a 3 pit stop race. Where we say that the first window opens on lap 7. You make your first pit stop on lap 7, then you can make it to the end of the race with 3 pit stops. If you stop earlier than lap 7, it'll be a 4-stop race.
Well, the field will come down. They will begin to line up side by side. This is round 2. The cars get quicker every time we go out. We'll talk about that. They're working with less horsepower, but they also are turning better times than any previous kart drivers. This is your field. Sebastian Bourdais and Paul Tracy side by side, looking for the green flag in Monterrey, Mexico, and there it is.
There was Mario Haberfeld, got squeezed into the wall there by somebody, and he just got through. I think there's a yellow and red car, but at the front there, Sebastian Bourdais, an excellent start. A couple of cars on the grass. Down, I think it's Darren Manning on the inside there, just coming to the apex of turn 2. They're just leading the picture there, but Sebastian Bourdais, a great start. Paul Tracy fancied his chances of getting past Bourdais at the first corner. It didn't happen.
But is it really necessary, knowing that Bourdais is a rookie? Paul Tracy has a tremendous wealth of experience, and you would think he would be the more patient of the two.
Paul Tracy and patience, I'm not sure those two really go together, Stephen. I don't know. But he has driven brilliant this season so far, has Paul Tracy. He is, he's measured his aggression with patience, and that is going to be the key to what he hopes is going to be a championship run this year.
Well, Sebastian Bourdais really comes back to this race having something to prove. In fact, he came out earlier and said, quote, now I want you to analyze this quote for me. The car is so good, it's creating a lot of expectations. You notice he didn't say, I'm so good that I'm creating expectations. It's the race car. Yeah,
he's got his feet on the ground, and, he's just being realistic, and he does have a very, very good race car, does Sebastian Bourdais, and he's really doing a nice job in itself. Look at these cars twitching around. We're on board now with Paul Tracy. This is the final corner, turn 12, and you've got to feed the power in. They've moved the wall back there since last year a little bit, which is a good safety. Here's a move on board with Jimmy Vasser, who started farther back down the field. Look at it on the right-hand side there. You can see it was down the inside of Montero, actually went Mario Haberfeld, made a couple of moves there, and various people on the grass. Poor old Jimmy Vasser got shuffled out, even behind Rodolfo Levine on the outside line there. So that was the other second little players' car right ahead of Jimmy. That is Patrick Carpentier. He, as I said, had this viral infection. As we see his teammate putting the pressure onto Sebastian Bourdais, but here is the battle at the front of the field, and Paul Tracy is beginning to put the pressure on Sebastian Bourdais.
Boy, he certainly is, and Paul had a nice break after the St. Petersburg race. He ran about 150 test laps at Fontana's 1.5-mile course on March 12th, but since that point in time, from March 12th all the way back to February 22nd when we were all at St. Petersburg, he did not have any time in the Champ car at all. He had a nice big breather before that test session.
Here we come. This is certainly one of the better overtaking opportunities down into turn 10, they generally call that, and you can see there that Paul Tracy wasn't able to get close enough to have a run on the race leader Sebastien Bourdais. Here again they are at the final corner. Look how hard Paul Tracy is having to work there. He's very happy with this car. It is the backup car because he did crash on Saturday morning in the primary car, and he went over the curbs in turn 3 and 4, which is coming up in about another quarter of a mile or so. We're coming now down into turn 2. This is one of the slowest corners on the track, second gear. Look at them, how he's having to struggle there to get the power down. Well over 750 horsepower in these cars, no traction control, of course. This is turn 3 and 4, right here, there, and there in particular was where Tracy ran over the curbs yesterday. It actually damaged the under tray on the car, completely destroyed the under tray on the car, even damaged the engine as well, and effectively spun off in his own oil, hit the wall. That car was unrepairable for yesterday. He's in the backup car, is Paul Tracy, this morning. However, he was absolutely thrilled with the car, and even though he hadn't driven it this weekend, he was fastest in the race morning warm-up. So Paul Tracy is very, very confident coming into this race. The other thing in his favour, Stephen, is that because Paul Tracy did not go out yesterday, he didn't use a couple of sets of tyres that he would otherwise have done. So he is coming in here with the benefit of a lot of fresh Bridgestone Potenza tyres, and the other guys are using worn tyres. And tyre wear is a big factor in this Tecate Tarmac Monterrey Grand Prix.
Well, when Paul had that problem, jumped over the curve, he actually lost the entire oil cooler, came loose underneath the car, put oil on his own wheels, and put him into the wall. So now you have to come into this race, Jeremy, and think, how careful do you have to be on these curves? We know that they have been cut down, but with that kind of experience behind you, I'm a little bit surprised to see Paul take his car and put all 4 wheels jumping over a number of these curves.
Well, they have reduced the curves. This is turn 3 and 4. This is where Paul went off yesterday, and you can see that all over the curbs, and the reason they're all over the curbs today is because they have shaved those curbs overnight, and particularly there, and also 6 and 7. There's Thiago Monteiro, who's apparently spun off the road. I think that might be in turn 1. I'm not quite sure. We'll get a replay of that perhaps and see exactly where he is, but a problem there for the Fittipaldi Dingman Racing entry of Thiago Monteiro, and yeah, I think that's not sure where it is actually.
Well, this team has had a number of problems. Thiago Monteiro broke an axle in the final moments of practice on Friday. Then they had to use the backup car for the qualifying session. He ended up 16th. So Monteiro ended up withdrawing his time from Friday in favor of the backup machine, and he climbed 6 places up on the speed charts. And you see team owner Emerson Fittipaldi talking it over right there. Let's take another look at it. We don't see any serious contact there, but they've already lost axles in this car, and they've had mechanical problems all weekend long.
Yeah, and there is Emerson Fittipaldi. That's the race engineer. Behind him is Don Bricker, and here's a replay again at the start of the race. That was Patrick Carpentier getting into the back from Darren Manning's car. That was so. The safety car is out. Okay, well the pace car is out on the track, so that will negate Sebastien Bourdais' lead. Presumably the officials feel that Monteiro's car is in an unsafe location. Meanwhile, this has also said Alex Young did not take the start of the race. Sadly, he's had some sort of a problem on the grid. Did not get out to start the race, and he is now already shown us 4 laps down. They're still going to try and get that car into the race, but disappointment for Alex Young.
That is a real shame, because Alex got a call about a week ago, last weekend, from his manager, Rick Gorn, and he was told to stand by because he might be driving in Mexico this weekend. Well, he had to book a flight from Kuala Lumpur to secure his Mexican visa in a matter of days. That is no easy task, getting all the way from Kuala Lumpur all the way over to Mexico. Now, that is the major city of Malaysia. That's sandwiched between Cambodia to the north and Singapore to the south, just north of Australia, to give a really big picture. So Alex came a long, long way so far for nothing.
Yes, he did, and that's a great disappointment. It's for nothing. At least he's got some experience, so if he is able to find a sponsorship to continue with this team for the rest of the season, at least now coming into the next round, which will be the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach in California, then at least he will have a little bit of experience coming into this weekend. Absolutely none in that car, and he's been sneaking up on it gradually through the first couple of days of practice and qualifying. There is Thiago Monteiro out of his car, and just under this, as soon as the caution flags came out, 2 cars came into the pits. They were Jimmy Vasser and Patrick Carpentier. We might remember last year Patrick Carpentier did exactly the same thing, and that strategy worked out extremely well for him until he missed his signal to make a pit stop later in the race, and he went longer than the designated pit stop window. You're supposed to come in every 26 laps. He waited till the 27th, and he therefore had to do an extra pit stop.
Well, Patrick Carpentier sits in the pits, and so does Jimmy Vasser. And once again, Paul Tracy is so far out in front that we haven't spent a lot of time on him so far today. But now, go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, for something you should say, in actual fact, this last time around, Tracy lost 3 seconds of his lead to Jourdain.
But we'll come back and check on him in just a few moments. Right now, however, we stay on board at the front of the field as Paul Tracy and Michel Jourdain go at it. And you're exactly right. Jourdain has managed to close up just a little bit right now. It seems to be gradual.
Well, no, it's not gradual. He did all in one swell swoop last time around. Paul Tracy, he'd been lapping very, very consistently. Once again, in the high 1 minute 16s, low 1 minute 17s. The last lap around, though, was a 1 minute 20.8. So just the last time around, he must have made a mistake somewhere. I don't think there was any lap traffic in the way, so he must have just made a mistake somewhere, did Paul Tracy. He's kept it on the road now. He's lost most of his lead to this man, Michel Jourdain Jr. We saw these two, a very similar scenario just a few weeks ago in St. Petersburg. Tracy in the closing stages, out in the lead of the race, Jourdain in second place, and Paul then said after the race he allowed Michel to get within 4 or 5 seconds, and then he put his foot down again and pulled away to see Patrick Carpentier making a scheduled pit stop farther down the field. Foot coming in now from 7th place, and Patrick has certainly driven an excellent race this afternoon given his physical problems this weekend with that viral infection. But Paul Tracy this time around, he's let that get a bit too close, I think, and I think he must have made a mistake.
And we learned very early on that Patrick Carpentier was not feeling well. He's been sick all weekend long. And to do the job that he has done today under those conditions is admirable indeed. And now we are looking at one of the American Spirit cars. That is the number 12 car. That should be Jimmy Vasser. Yes, it is. Coming back out onto the racetrack. He had a tremendous amount of understeer in this race car. Now, you know some of that is the racetrack, but apparently the team says they had way too much to be able to drive it. Look at him saw back and forth on that steering wheel. Now, granted, this is on cold tires, but that shouldn't happen under any circumstances.
No, it's certainly easy to make a mistake on cold tires. This is a low grit track, and in Champ Car racing, of course, there are no tyre warmers, so when you come out of the pits, those tyres are stone cold, and on this low grit racetrack, it's easy to make a mistake in turn 2, which is exactly what Jimmy did. And of course, he and Patrick, they're on the same strategy as each other. They both made their first pit stop on lap 7. This is lap 59. This is their final stop that has been made by those two. Meanwhile, back to the front of the field, we can see the gap now between Paul Tracy and Michel, and Paul has got his head down his last couple of laps. He's extended that lead again to 1.8 seconds, so he's doubled that advantage within the last couple of laps. But Michel, he's going to get a sniff of the win here, and he's going to push as hard as he can. They've both still got one pit stop to come. Their last pit stop was on lap 40 for the race leaders. That will mean in another 6 laps time they will be making their final pit stop of the afternoon.
You would think that if you are Team Ray Hall, you want to sit back and consider 2 possibilities. We can win this race 1 of 2 ways. We can either chase him down right now, because it's as close as we're going to get. Tracy just made a mistake, but it doesn't seem as if we have the speed to chase him down on the track just with brute strength. Or we can win it in the pits.
That's exactly right. The pit stop's certainly going to be absolutely crucial. That's what these guys are hoping for as well. Mario Dominguez is all over the back end of Fernandez's car, but he can't find a way past, not too far behind him, as we see Rodolfo Lavin making a pit stop. He's running 3 or 4 laps down at the back of the field in 16th place. There he makes the Mexican driver from San Luis Potosi, and he's back out in the fray. And here's his countryman Adrian Fernandez and Mario Dominguez battling for all their way over 4th place.
Mario Dominguez, once again, another one of the drivers who clipped a curb very, very hard in practice over the weekend. In fact, his incident happened in Friday's qualifying session. He ended up 8th, and then he came back out to go and work again and qualify on Saturday and ended up 8th once again. So it didn't affect him that much, but you still have to think that once you clip one of these curves really hard, it's got to remain in your memory for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, you're not wrong, certainly, and these drivers, they have pretty good memories, they don't forget things, and there's a little mistake there from Mario Dominguez. He's certainly run a very good race, has Mario. He's outpaced his teammate, veteran teammate Roberto Moreno comprehensively, really, both weekends of race. He had a couple of problems, did Mario, at St. Petersburg, particularly in the late stages of the race, so didn't finish where he was capable of finishing, didn't finish at all after that incident with Adrian Fernandez. But certainly he had run well in St. Petersburg. He has run very well this weekend for the Herders competition team. He had a problem on Friday when he ran over the curbs and damaged his primary car beyond immediate repair, but the backup car, he's been out on the pace all weekend long. He's now putting the pressure on, and just through 4 laps now, 3.5 laps now before these guys will be into the pits for their final service, and that is when these teams have their say in the matter and trying to determine the outcome of these races. We see the drivers, there's not much to choose between them. What about the pit crews? We'll find out.
Herders, no doubts, wants to win this race, but you have to be realistic as well. Would Herders be very, very pleased with Mario Dominguez in a top 5 position?
They'll be thrilled with a top 5 position, certainly, and particularly when he's putting so much pressure on Adrian Fernandez. They love him to get past Adrian Fernandez, love him, of course, to win the race. But nothing better than that. He's had one win in somewhat fortuitous circumstances in Surfers Paradise last year, of course, but this one, this weekend, Mario Dominguez has been legitimately up at the front of the field all weekend long, and he's had a couple of good runs. He made a mistake there, ran a little bit wide. I think these tyres now are getting fairly well worn at this stage, so the car is beginning to slide around quite a bit now, and this is where experience tells. But you can see the blue car out in the front of this pack. That is here comes Mario in slightly early for that pit. That's a good call, I think, by this team. Mario was clearly beginning to struggle a little bit. We are within the window to get to the end of the race without making another pit stop. Get in now, get in on some better tyres and get him back out into the race. And Mario Dominguez is in the pits, and here goes to work the Herders crew.
And Mario is a Bee Gees fan. The American 1970s disco group, he's crazy about it. He gets in and out of the pits with no problem, and that also separates he and Adrian Fernandez, who got together at St. Petersburg. So Fernandez also has to take a deep breath and not have to worry about coming in on a pit stop and having more contact as well. You think he may have been a little hesitant following Adrian?
Well, certainly wouldn't have want to run into the back of him, no doubt about that, but he's done a good job this afternoon, has Mario Dominguez, and Darrell Fox there from New Zealand he leads that number 55 crew. Good pit stop by them. Now he's going to wait and see. It'll be Adrian's turn to make a pit stop within a couple of laps or so, and will coming in early pay off in his favour? Hard to say, because these guys are turning some very fast laps now on their worn tyres. They're going quicker than they have been. All of them are now turning their fastest laps of the race. That time around, Alex Tagliani down into the 1 minute 16s, 1 minute 16.9, that is his best lap of the race, and the same for Adrian Fernandez. Also, he's just turned his fastest lap of the race as well.
And you would think that Paul Generosi would be absolutely delighted if he could take this home.
He would indeed, and talking of fastest laps, there goes the fastest lap of all by Paul Tracy. As we see Darren Manning there into the pits. He comes in from 6th position, and he makes a pit stop. He was in 5th in actual fact. There goes Darren Manning. Good stop there by Walker Racing. The fastest lap of the race, though, has just been turned by Paul Tracy. 1 minute 16.007. 16.334 by Alex Tagliani. 16.5 by Jourdain. And well, actually a quicker time indeed for now Bruno Junqueras at the fastest lap. 75, 1 minute 15.7. So Bruno Junqueras is now the quickest man on the track, but the ante is being upped here, Stephen. We're getting a lot quicker. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty. We're inside 20 odd laps to go, and this is when it counts.
And we started running laps early today, very, very early in this race, in the upper 1 minute and 17 second bracket, almost 1 minute 18 seconds. Then they came down to the mid 17s. We had a huge jump when Sebastian Bourdais was making his big charge to the front. You're looking at Adrian Fernandez coming on pit row right now. And times came down to the 1 minute 16 second range, and now we're in the mid 15s. So once again, the track is atypical, if you will, in that it gets faster and faster and faster, and it provides a better racing service, not just online, but offline, where passing has to take place.
Yeah, that's true, certainly, and it certainly is going to remain difficult offline here because not many cars run off the racing line. The rubber build-up does not occur off the racing line, so it does make it very difficult for passing, but there's a good stop by Mike Sales there and the number 51 crew of Adrian Fernandez. But there goes Mario Dominguez. So Mario Dominguez, that stop has paid off. Mario Dominguez has got out ahead of Adrian Fernandez.
and that was the battle for 4th and 5th place a few moments ago. So when this pit stop completely cycles through and everyone gets back out on the racetrack, you're going to see some very, very good results from that. Now, a grade the day, if you will, from Alex Yoon. A young man came all the way from Malaysia and incredibly, in fact, it's almost exactly across the world from Mexico. So it was a huge trip in a short amount of time. He had never sat in a champ car before. And as we watch Paul Tracy come in, we have to consider what this young man was up against all day long.
And the crowd is cheering. Jourdain is it's also into the pits just a few seconds behind. These two crews are going to work. Here is the Paul Tracy team. He pulls up at his marks. The Steve Moore and the boys here, they go to work on the number 3 car. A little farther back down the pit lane, Barrett and around, there he is, leading the left front there, the New Zealander. The crowd is cheering, but Paul Tracy gets the jump. He is out ahead of Michel Jourdain Jr. Great pit stops there by both crews.
Absolutely flawless, and look at the crowd standing and cheering on Michel Jourdain Jr. They needed a mistake. They needed something. They needed an adjustment on the car. They're just this shy of pulling off an upset and possibly chasing down Paul Tracy. It won't happen on pit row.
It won't happen on pit row. Will it happen in the final round? There's a good stop again there for Bruno Junqueira. And Donny Hovel is the crew chief, and Tim... There's Moreno as well. So Moreno's made his final pit stop. Just about everybody, I think, now has made their final pit stop. There is Adrian Fernandez. I'm not quite sure where he is on the racetrack. That appears to be Alex Tagliani, who we're presuming is in 3rd place. So Adrian will be... No, where's Dominguez then? Dominguez should have been ahead of both of those two. There's no sign of Mario Dominguez.
Dominguez is actually being scored right now.
There is Dominguez, he's off the road.
Position, and that is exactly why. Some type of very big problem for Mario Dominguez, and just when we were talking about what a fine job he was doing all day, they end up off in the grass. I can't wait to see exactly what happened to Mario, because he had a fine day going.
I hesitate to... He clambered over the top of Darren Manning is what happened, and we couldn't see what happened. We just saw the end of the incident there, but what a shame for probably both of those two. Certainly for that Mario Dominguez. He's got ahead of Fernandez. Listen to the crowd.
Mario Dominguez will be pulled away. In the meantime, Darren Manning also has to have some serious damage on the front of that race car. He was looking at 5th, 6th, 7th place, something like that. Possibly a very, very good finish for Manning. And all of a sudden, that may be down the tubes as well if he has to stop and fix damage.
Yeah, really, what a shame that would be. But we haven't gone full course yellow. I think we can see the crowd waving there in the background. Not quite sure whether they're waving approval or disapproval or what it is, but certainly they're very animated there in the grandstand. What a shame for Mario. He really done a nice job this weekend. Here's another replay. Look, here we are on board with Darren Manning, and Mario just dives down the inside, and he came from an awful long way behind, and I think Darren Manning there clearly wasn't terribly impressed by the move.
You've got to call that Darren Manning's corner, I believe.
I think so. He was a long way ahead going into the turn, and Darren, of course, had made a pit stop a couple of laps ago, so his tyres were a little bit warmer than Dominguez is, and I'd say that Mario just, he was on cold tyres. Well, no, he wasn't. He'd been out, they've both been a few laps before. Sorry, I want to correct myself there. They've both been in 2 or 3 laps before, and so their tyres were pretty much up to temperature and pretty much on a par with each other. So I just say that was a very optimistic move by Mario Dominguez. It didn't come off.
Well, and that is exactly why the crowd was cheering, because they're certainly not going to cheer against Mario Dominguez, one of their hometown heroes here. Michel Jourdain Jr., probably their best hope of the Mexican fans here in Monterrey, pulling off a win today, and he is not in a terribly threatening position to Paul Tracy, who has commanded this race so far. In the meantime, let's jump back on board with Darren Manning once again. What do you see about that race car?
Yeah, big tire marks on the top of the left-hand side pod where Dominguez crashed down. They got Mario Dominguez going again. He certainly lost at least 1 lap, probably 2, I think, to the race leaders. And there is Mario Haberfeld out of the car as well. So his day is done. He'd been running up in 6th place before that stoppage. So a heartbreak for Mario, who had a fabulous run a few weeks ago in St. Petersburg, the first race of the season, finished in 4th place. No more of that, though, this afternoon.
Well, Mario was quoted as saying during Friday's practice that he had trouble cornering, he had trouble braking, and he had trouble under acceleration. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that only leaves the straightaways. It's a miracle that they came along as well as they did.
Yeah, I'd say apart from that, the car was absolutely perfect.
Well, Mario's day is over, and that is a shame for that young man. Very, very personable. Had a chance to chat with him in the pits. The nicest guy, I think, that you could ever hope to talk to.
Yeah, you're right. And he certainly, he's had a couple of disappointing seasons in Formula 3000. He's been a champion in Formula 3 before that, the British Formula 3 Championship, which has produced many, many, many top drivers. Now, here's the battle shaping up there. This is for third place. Tagliani just ahead of Adrian Fernandez. And Fernandez is close in the last couple of laps. Right behind them is Patrick Carponche. Carponche, despite that viral infection, really has done a stellar job. And I think that was one of the, I think that was Joel Camathias in the yellow car there. He's now a lap down, is Camathias, in 11th place, so he's looking to pick up some more points. And there is the battle there, and it looks interesting. Tagliani pulled away a little bit from Fernandez, and Fernandez now under all sorts of pressure from Patrick Carponche. And not far behind him also is Bruno Junqueira, who is also closing in.
And at one point in time, Junqueira had worked his way back into the top 5. Now that the pit cycle has completed itself, he finds that he is in 6th position, coming from 3rd all the way down to 9th, and hopefully back up into that top 5 again, because if anybody has pressure on them, you would think it would be Bruno Junqueira, who has tremendously high expectations. On the other hand, Adrian Fernandez doesn't necessarily have those same expectations because of this. The last time an owner-driver won in Champ Car racing was Bobby Rahal in 1992. It's been a while, Jeremy.
It has been a long, long while, hasn't it? You're absolutely right. Here we are aboard again with Darren Manning. You can see that Mario Dominguez, he comes from about 3 car lengths behind to make the pass. There's a good slow motion replay of Dominguez sliding over the top. Great work there. And Darren Manning, he's not impressed by that move by Mario Dominguez. And I've got to side with Darren Manning. Yeah, I'm a Brit, and so is he. But I think Mario came from a long, long way behind to try and make that pass. I don't think it was really on. And it could have cost them both very dearly. Certainly it cost Mario the potential of a very good 4th or 5th place run, and possibly Darren Manning as well. Darren is still going. He is in 7th, and he's on a little bit of a breathing space over Jimmy Vasser, who's actually about 10 seconds behind him. But Darren, I'm sure that car must be damaged somewhat, and he's just now going to try and bring that car home to the finish line.
Paul Tracy still your leader, and Michel Jourdain trying to chase him down in 2nd place, so far with no luck. Tagliani, Fernandez, Carpentier, and Junqueira, you could throw a blanket over them as they struggle for 3rd through 6th places. 14 laps to go. This one is shaping up to be a fantastic race, not necessarily for the win, which Paul Tracy seems to be commanding, at least at the moment, but 3rd, 4th, and 5th place have been going at it tooth and nail all day long, and it hasn't changed, especially Tagliani and Fernandez.
No, that's absolutely right. Now there is Junqueira onto the back of this battle as well. He's closed right up now onto the tail of Patrick Carponche, and he's not going to be hanging around there in 6th place for too long. Bruno Junqueira, we're on board with him now. He's been very quick through that turn 3 and 4 chicane. He certainly isn't close enough now to make a move on Patrick Carponche, although we thought that earlier in the race when he tried to make a move on Darren Manning, wasn't it? But again, coming to a lot of pressure in that corner. You've seen all sorts of dramatic races, Darren Manning, but now here's Bruno Junqueira. He's in 6th place. He wants 5th, he wants 4th, he wants 3rd. He wants to get as high as he can before the end of this race.
And we are showing you the best race on the racetrack right now. We will remind you that Paul Tracy enjoys a 4.3 second lead over 2nd place Michel Jourdain. This race has been fantastic all day long. Alex Tagliani knee-deep in this race as well. Tagliani, remember, talk about Tagliani a little bit, Jeremy, because he spent most of his Champ Car time in a Reynard, not in this Lola.
That's right, for the Players 4-side team, of course, who's now leading the race. So Alex has been with the Players team for a long, long time. He was with them, of course, in the Toyota Atlantic Championship. Drove for them a couple of years in it, and then he moved up to the Champ Cars with that same team. And he lost the ride at the end of last year. It looked like the beginning or the middle of last year that it was going to be Patrick Carponche who was going to lose that ride. Ended up being Tagliani. Now it's Tagliani who's with the Rocket Sports team doing a great job in 3rd place.
And Tagliani works very, very hard as a cross trainer, including bicycling and jogging and even a low-fat intake calorie limit. So your leader once again, Paul Tracy, and the gap that we just spoke of a few minutes ago has increased. He is now up to a 4.6-second lead over Michel Jourdain. Tagliani, Fernandez, Carpentier, and Junqueira round out the top 6. Darren Manning in 7th place. I am surprised that Manning has been as quick as he has been after the contact.
You're right, he certainly lost a little bit of ground to Bruno Junqueira, has Darren Manning, but he's still running very well there in 7th place. The gap has come down to Jimmy Vasser, but he's still maintaining that place, is Darren Manning, and doing a splendid job. And he's got to keep his head calm and cool now to get to the end of this race. And you say just over a dozen laps to go here. This is the battle. This is what we're all watching. There is Tagliani. I think Tagliani, the reason these guys closed up on him a half a dozen laps ago was when they had to get past a lap car of Joel Kamath. Here's, look at this. Here's a good graphic there showing the biggest movers of the race. And Carpentier, certainly he's been the man. The rest of these guys have really made up their ground through attrition, apart from Darren Manning. But Patrick Carpentier has that Players Foresight team has had a fabulous strategy, and Patrick Carpentier, particularly given the fact he does not feel anything like at his best, really has done a fabulous job. So is his teammate. Here is Paul Tracy, just edged out again. The last couple of laps he's extended that lead. It had been fairly consistent, around about 4.3 seconds for 3 or 4 laps, and now all of a sudden Paul has extended that to 6.2 laps, and Paul Tracy is doing very well. He's already led the most laps in this race, so that is yet another championship point to his quest for the Bridgestone Presents the Champ Car World Series, powered by Ford.
When he completes this lap, he will have led 58 of the laps so far today. We only have 11 to go. If anybody has any cards left, you better throw them on the table because you're running out of time. Paul Tracy gets quicker and quicker, and the race summary shows only 2 leaders all day long.
That's right. Sebastian Bourdais led the first, 16 or 17 laps of the first 16 laps, and Paul Tracy took over when Bourdais came into the pits, and he hasn't looked back since then. Paul Tracy has been out in the front the whole time, and he's looking good for win number 21 of his career and number 2 of the season in just 2 starts.
And it has to be very, very frustrating for Newman Haas to see one of their biggest antagonists, Players Foresight, sailing off into the distance, not just for a podium finish or for the win, but also for first and second places. Bruno Junqueira trying to make up as much time as he can for Newman Haas. He is struggling back in 6th position. He dropped down to 9th for a few moments, and Patrick Carpentier really didn't seem to put up too much of a fuss over that pass, did he?
No, he didn't, and it's only it's worth a couple of points there between 5th and 6th, and I think Patrick's just done such a fabulous job so far this afternoon. I don't think he's going to press the issue too hard. No, that was a pretty brave move by Junqueira. He dived down the inside and he made the room for himself. He made that pass. Certainly Patrick didn't really make it easy for him, but Patrick certainly did a good job of at least making sure that his car did not come into contact with Junqueira. Junqueira clearly is more hungry than Carpentier, and at least at this stage in the race, because he's feeling a lot better physically, I am sure. And Patrick at this stage, he's going to be happy, 4th, 5th, 6th. Any of those 3 is going to be good points for him and a very good finish, given what he has been through this weekend.
Well, Carpentier will pretty much take anything he can get, considering the fact that he almost had nothing. In fact, Max Pappas was roaming the sidelines, ready to go in for him if need be. Now, speaking of Max Pappas, he is also looking and in the running for a ride that doesn't exist yet. Now, he stated in St. Petersburg he would love to run a second car for Fittipaldi-Dinman Racing. Fittipaldi has already said, though, that they want to run a second car, but probably will not do it until next year. But you have to think sooner or later we're going to see that guy in a kart car.
Yes, indeed, and certainly that is what he's been aiming for a long, long time, Max Pappas, since the end of last season, since he lost his ride at the end, midway through last year with the Sigma Autosport team. He stepped in a couple of times for Adrian Fernandez after Fernandez got involved in a couple of major incidents as that season progressed, but the substitute role is not what Max Pappas wants. He wants a full-time ride, and showed that what he did at the beginning of last season with a very underfunded Sigma Autosport team, got a couple of podium finishes in just 5 starts to that little outfit before they succumbed to the financial pressures. But Max Pappas, he knows he can get the job done in this series, and he wants to prove it once again.
Paul Tracy up front, 6.5 seconds over the rest of the field, so he's sailing off into the distance. One of the quickest guys out on the race course right now is still stuck back in 5th position, having just passed Patrick Carpentier a few moments ago. Adrian Fernandez is going to have a tough 8.5 laps to hold off a hard-charging Bruno Junqueira.
Yes, he certainly is. That's going to be a great battle. Here it is. And Adrian Fernandez, he started from the pole here 1 year ago, really struggled in the race. The car was bottoming out during that race. He wasn't happy at all. He led until he made his first pit stop, but then he fell way back down the order and finished ultimately out of the points. But that was a pretty dismal day on race day after the huge highs of getting on the pole here the day before, the previous 2 days. In fact, he was quickest on both days here 1 year ago, both in the wet and in the dry. But this morning in the warm-up, Adrian was complaining that the car was bottoming. He was bottoming out on circuit, running a little bit too low. That's exactly the problem he had in the race last year. He's got together with his race engineer David Watson. They've raised the car a little bit for the race. Generally, when you raise the car a little bit, you lose some of the downforce that the underbody on the car generates. But clearly that's not been a problem for Adrian Fernandez. He's driven a very consistent, very smooth, very calm, collected race, and he's looking now to get at least a fourth place finish. As we see Alex Tagliani there trying to put a lap on Alex Young, who's also done a very respectable job, I think, during the race this afternoon. Young's best lap is a 1 minute 17.4. That's within a second and a half of the best lap of the race. Given the fact he had very little time in the car this weekend, well, none at all before the weekend, I think Alex Young has done a great job. Just stay out of the way here, Mr. Young. Yes, he did. He saw Tagliani come in there, gave him plenty of room. Very smart driving by Alex Young. This has been a very impressive debut by the Malaysian.
Young is currently in 10th position. If we jump back up front, we see that Paul Tracy leads by nearly 7 seconds over the field, and this guy has to be salivating at the opportunity to go back to a track that he has seen many, many times before for many years. The Grand Prix of Long Beach coming up in Long Beach, California on April 13th, and Players Forsyth couldn't be asking for a better situation going into that show.
Dead right there, certainly. And here's a move now. Here's Patrick Carpentier. Whoa!
Oh my!
We thought he wasn't too fussed about losing those places. Clearly wrong there, Jeremy. Patrick Carpentier came smoking down the inside. I'm presuming he didn't have a problem there. He was obviously stalled.
He's calling for a push.
He's mad. He's mad with himself, I think. He'd done a great job this afternoon, and now he's thrown it all away with a very optimistic move in turn 10.
Boy, that is very frustrating. Let's take another look at it, because at this same point on the racetrack, we've seen a number of what you would call optimistic moves here today.
We can look on the left-hand side of the street. There goes Carpentier about, I'd say probably 25 miles an hour too quickly, 30 or 40 kilometers an hour too fast there. No hope of making the corner. Around goes the car, and worse than that, he's stalled the engine. And that's going to put the pressure on his teammate, Paul Tracy. So not only is it bad news for Patrick Carpentier, it's also extremely bad news for Paul Tracy, who's now going to have his mirrors absolutely full again of Michel Jourdain Jr.
I don't know if it's possible to hear 100,000 Mexicans screaming at the top of their voice, but if it is, Michel will hear that very, very shortly, because he is going to have what could be his last opportunity to chase down Paul Tracy, who had pretty much sewn this thing up with only 6 laps to go, 5.5 now, as we're running under a full course yellow.
Wow. So a big turn up there. We've just, 6 laps to go, and that is not what anybody needed, really. Certainly not what Paul Tracy needed. The only guy who's really going to benefit, not easy, you've got a lap car between them. There is Jourdain. Behind him is the lapped car of Mario Dominguez, who's a couple of laps down. But unfortunately, between Jourdain and the race leader, Paul Tracy, is the lapped car of, I think that is Ryan Hunter-Reay. So Ryan there is running between the 2 race leaders. The rookie driver, he's a lap down. He's actually a couple of laps down, is Ryan in 13th place. There is Jourdain, the red and white car. Then the twice lapped car of Mario Dominguez. So actually, that's a battle for position between Hunter-Reay and Dominguez, both 2 laps down.
So do you think that a crewman from Michel Jourdain is going to go down and speak with Hunter-Reay's crew, or do you think he's already there and gone again?
Yeah, I'm sure the crew will. They know the position here. They're going to tell Ryan he's out of the points in any case. They want him to bring that car home to the finish, and he's going to be now making sure that he keeps out of the way. I'm sure he will. I hope at least that he will wave past Jourdain. He's not supposed to do it actually before they go back to green, but I hope once the signal to start this race is given, I hope that Ryan will play ball and allow safe passage to Jourdain and let Jourdain take the fight to Paul Tracy. I think if Ryan did that, I think there's about 100,000 people here in the crowd in Monterrey who wouldn't disagree with that. So that would be a very good thing to do.
I want you to take a look at the crowd as the field goes by, especially when Paul Tracy goes by and he is followed by Michel Jourdain. Most of the people in the stands standing, waving flags, waving banners, waving anything they can get their hands on, because these guys are very, very excited about the possibility, even the remote possibility, that Jourdain could finally do something with the leader of the race.
Here's the wave there from the grandstand. This is a great camera here that goes along the rail, on the cable, all the way down in front of the pit lane. And you see the crowd there waving their approval, and Paul Tracy comes across the line to complete lap 80. So we have now 5 laps to go. We are on board there with Michel Jourdain Jr. And the pressure is now going to be on him. Can he make a move? First of all, past Ryan Hunter-Reay, and then past the race leader, Paul Tracy. It's a bit of a long shot. Paul Tracy really doesn't tend to make mistakes. Well, he does make mistakes, doesn't he? But hopefully not in the lead of the race. Michel Jourdain Jr., this boy has come on so much since he joined Team Rahal at the beginning of the last season. He had a fabulous run here in Monterrey last year. He finished in 4th place after starting in 6th, and that certainly was a fabulous result for him and for the team. And he kept up that form pretty much throughout the year. He didn't qualify as well as he wanted to on a lot of occasions last year, and that wasn't necessarily due to any fault of his. He had a lot of niggly problems at precisely the wrong times in qualifying, but in the race configuration, Michel always did a great job, and he finished himself at the end of the year was 10th in the points table. Perhaps what wasn't representative of what he might have been able to do, but he was consistent. He made very few mistakes, and he came on in leaps and bounds as the year progressed. And this year he is building on that momentum he gained last year with Team Rahal.
The last driver to win the first 2 races of a Car Champ Car Series was, I caught you, didn't I? It's Rick Mears. Rick Mears, back in, I believe it was 1982, he pulled that trick off. Paul Tracy is looking to do the very same thing. The pace car lights are out, and you have to think that the rest of the series schedule is looking very, very good. Brands Hatch, May 3rd, 4th, and 5th, a beautiful, beautiful race course.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get there. And, I'll tell you what, with the way that Darren Manning is going this afternoon, he's going to be looking forward to going there as well. But here we are. We're back to green flag racing. Ryan Hunter-Reay is between the 2 leaders. Here goes Paul Tracy toward the green flag.
Paul Tracy takes the green, and he has very, very little breathing room right now over Michel Jourdain Jr. Let's look at 2nd place and see if he is allowed to get by, if Hunter-Reay will pull over to the side and let Michel, and that's exactly what's happening. Look at the left side of your screen. Hunter-Reay pulled out of the way and let Michel Jourdain Jr. go by and at least have an opportunity to get at Paul Tracy.
Yeah, good move there by Ryan. He's, by then, of course, even by then, Tracy pulled out a good lead over Jourdain, but he would see Bruno Junqueira trying to make a move around the outside of Adrian Fernandez at turn 5. That's not going to work. He certainly didn't on that occasion. Now he's going to try and make a move in back down to turn 6. There's the laps car. I think that is Joel Camathias. It might be Alex Young. I'm not quite sure which one it is from here. It's probably Alex Young. There is Mario. Is that Roberto Moreno off the road, or is that?
No, it did not have a red nose, so that means it's Mario Dominguez. The cars almost look identical. Roberto Moreno's has a red spot on the nose of it. You're on board with the 4th place, or rather 5th place car of Bruno Junqueira. He is trying to overtake Adrian Fernandez for 4th place, and at this point, Newman Haas would have to consider that a victory out of the mess that they've had on their hands this weekend.
Yeah, very much so. I think Junqueira has he's driven pretty well this afternoon. He has made a couple of mistakes, but he's trying to make up for those now. We've got the rookie driver here, Rodolfo Lavin, ahead of him. That's danger. Watch out, Adrian Fernandez. He's going to make a clean move here on Rodolfo Lavin. I hope Rodolfo's not going to go for any glory here. He'd almost taken out Adrian early in the race when he spun in turn 3 and 4. And hopefully now he's going to keep his nose clean, not do anything silly, and allow this battle for position for 4th place to get through unhindered. And that was Alex Young, who was passed a few corners ago by Bruno Junqueira. Here we go through turns 3 and 4. Now what is Lavin going to do at the end of the straight here in turn 5? He's going to let Fernandez go down the inside. Good move by Rodolfo Lavin Jr. Left plenty of room for both of these 2 guys. Great move there. Look at Fernandez. That car snaking around as he applies the power coming out of turn 5. Fernandez still in 4th place. Junqueira wants that 4th place.
And we knew that Fernandez would be able to squeeze through and make that pass. We weren't sure if Junqueira would be able to get through as well. He did, and he still has a clean shot at 4th place. And this has been an excellent ongoing battle for quite some time. Sebastian Bourdais was very, very quick early, tried a different pit strategy, made some mistakes. It didn't work out for him. You're looking at the one and only remaining Newman Haas car in 5th place right now, and we have one of the American Spirit cars off in the grass as well.
Well, if Jimmy Vasser was running in 6th place. He had got ahead of Darren Manning, and so I'm not quite sure who that was, but we'll find out momentarily when they come across the line. Here comes this battle for 4th with Fernandez just ahead of Junqueira. It is a great battle. We see there just going out of the screen to the right, that is the 3rd place car of Alex Tagliani. You see there Junqueira getting very, very close to Fernandez, but Fernandez maintains that position. And yeah, Vasser did not come past, so it was Vasser that went off the road. Moreno has actually found a way past Darren Manning. I'm not quite sure how he managed that. Maybe it was all part of that same thing, I don't know. But whatever now, Moreno is up into 6th place. It was not him off the road a few laps ago. You're absolutely right, it was Mario Dominguez off the road again. So we see now Moreno up into 6th ahead of Manning. Vasser has yet to come past, and everybody else is 1 lap down, led by Patrick Carponche.
Well, it seems that Jimmy Vasser has lost the fire in that machine. We're going to take one more look at it. And boy, he was clipped pretty hard from the tail, and it's hard to tell who that was. It was one of the Herdez cars. I'm not sure which one. That may have been Mario Haberfeld.
It was Darren Manning there who hit the back. So Darren Manning there makes a mistake as well. He hits the back of Jimmy Vasser at turn 5. They're both off the road. Manning did get back on the road, but Jimmy didn't. He has stalled, and that's a great shame for Jimmy Vasser. And poor old Jimmy, he seems to be a magnet in that corner. Here comes the white flag. There's just 1 lap to go. J.D. Wilbur has the white flag out, and just less than 3 miles to go now for the race leader, Paul Tracy.
And the battle again is between Bruno Junqueira and Adrian Fernandez. In the meantime, let's take a look back at the front of the field. Paul Tracy, 1 lap to go. He is not even in his primary car. He had virtually no seat time on Saturday. And here is a guy that jumps in a race car at the last minute, a backup car pulled out of the garage, and comes out and hopefully will win this race.
Here's a battle. This is all eyes on this battle. Adrian Fernandez, he's the hometown hero. We're not even seeing Michel Jourdain Jr., who's also from Mexico City. Of course, he is running in 2nd place. There is Bruno Junqueira in 5th and wants 4th. And just half a lap to go now for the race leaders.
And for the first time in 20 years, we may see the same man win the first 2 races in a kart champ car year. Paul Tracy up front. You're looking at a battle once again. 4th and 5th place at stake. Adrian Fernandez and Bruno Junqueira fighting. In the meantime, 1 turn to go. Paul Tracy comes out smoothly. He goes all the way out by the pit row. And look at Jourdain coming in 2nd place right behind him. These are 2 very happy young men. Paul Tracy will win for the 2nd time this year, the same 1-2 finish that we saw in St. Petersburg just weeks ago.
You're absolutely right, and not far away from the same 1-2-3. There's Junqueira. He takes the flag in 5th place. There's Bobby Rahal congratulating his guys there on a fabulous job this weekend. Yes, Paul Tracy has won the race, but I'll tell you what, the big headlines down here in Mexico City are going to be for Michel Jourdain Jr., but Paul Tracy, he's going to celebrate with this crowd. He loves his racing. He's so enthusiastic about it. This is Paul Tracy's 13th year in the Champ Cars, and he loves it every bit as much as his first.
And look at the crowds as Michel Jourdain Jr. goes past. Just take a look on the left side of your screen at all the flags waving, the Mexican flags, the bandanas, anything else, the hands, the people standing up. They absolutely love their drivers here in Mexico. They have a number of Mexican-based race series. In fact, Michel Jourdain Sr. owns 2 race series that operate here in Mexico as well as a racetrack. So they are waist deep in just an absolute love of the sport, and they have adopted this entire series not just because of this race in the Mexico City race, but because so many of their drivers, their homegrown drivers in their own backyards, participate in this series.
Yes, it is tremendous enthusiasm down here. And Michel's father, Michel Sr., he also raced his cars 20 years ago when the series went to Mexico City. Michel Jr.'s uncle Bernardo, he also raced in the Champ Cars, 10 or 12 years ago, and raced in Super Bs and then briefly in the Champ Cars with his own team, Cimarron Racing. And here is Paul Tracy there, and he's getting a pretty good reception, and Michel Jourdain Jr. is getting an even bigger reception. But okay, there's not enough asphalt for Paul Tracy to do his donut, so instead he's going to do it on the grass.
You know, he's going to need some tread on those tires if he's going to keep that up. Paul Tracy, a very, very happy man. 21 wins now, I believe.
That's right, I think 21 wins here. This is a 193rd start, and here's Michel lapping it up. He's getting a standing ovation from this crowd. It is well deserved. A great run again this afternoon. 2 great runs this season for Michel Jourdain Jr. 2 second-place finishes for Team Rahal, and that's on his home turf. That's almost as good as a win for this young man.
Absolutely. You know, last year the average starting position for Michel Jourdain Jr. in a Champ Car race was 14th position. He came into this year saying, I have got to improve that. If they were going to move forward and get to the front of the field where they wanted to be, they had to start up front. Well, today he started inside row number 3. He qualified in the top 5, and he ends up on the podium in 2nd place. That is absolutely a very, very overjoyed man right now.
Yeah, and justifiably so, as you say. His average position last year was 14th, and that ranked 18th overall for all the drivers competing last year. So as you say, that was not what was required. He needed to qualify better, and there he gets the congratulations from the 3-time champion and team owner Bobby Rahal. And Michel really has driven a stellar race this afternoon. He just doesn't make mistakes, this young man. Last year, yes, he qualified very poorly. That overall qualifying average was appalling. He was only 18th, ranked 18th overall. But his finishing average overall last year was 10th. That's where he finished on the points. So he had a good job this year. He's building on all the... and there's Paul. He's got it back on the asphalt, but he's spun it again.
Well, I think he's lost the fire again, so it's that's okay. I'm sure he's willing to step back and let Michel Jourdain Jr. have his moment, because Paul's had 21 of them now. So he'll take his time getting back. In the meantime, look at the incredible crowd and just a huge number of press members that are crowding around Michel Jourdain Jr. right now. And also, while we do this, let's take a look at the official, or rather the unofficial early results. Paul Tracy is your winner. Michel Jourdain Jr. finishes 2 seconds behind him. Alex Tagliani, Adrian Fernandez, and Bruno Junqueira fought all day long. Roberto Moreno ends up with really a very respectable finish in 6th place.
He asked you to drive at 95% early on. Is that what you were doing?
Well, actually, we had a huge problem in St. Pete. The car was really loose in the race. And the team did some adjustment for this race, and the car was great. We didn't touch anything all race long. It's a big day for the Johnson Control team. It's a small team, you know. It's a young team, and a podium like this, second race, it's really good.
It's really surprised a lot of people at the speed that this team, not you in particular, but the team bringing together new people is shown in these first 2 races. Has it surprised you, or did you expect this?
No, I'm very surprised. I mean, it's always difficult when you compete with big teams with big budget and a lot of big program, you know, especially shocks. And we know we are behind on that. So it's a great day for the Johnson Control team. I mean, it's the best day for a start of a scene like that.
All right, Ted, great job. Let's go over a Double D with the hero of the day down here in Mexico.
Oh, a time of celebration here for Gigante and Michel Jourdain, surrounded by so much Mexican support here. Michel, you got to feel just so good.
Yeah, it's great. You know, last year, okay, we came here after not having a drive, and we had a great result in 4th place, and we had a good season. And then after, I mean, a podium in St. Pete, we come here and get another podium, 2nd place. It's great. We always want to win, but I guess next year we win here.
When Tracy was in front of you on that last restart with the yellow, did you get frustrated behind Ryan Hunter-Reay? Did you think you had a chance to maybe catch and pass Tracy?
He was so fast, you know. He was really, really fast, and I think I could sometimes do a lap as fast as him, but not all the time, you know. His car was so good, and he was driving really good, you know. So he was really tough. I think we were faster than everybody else, but we just couldn't stay with him.
Thank you, Michel. Congratulations. Mexican party in full force tonight, but the Canadians will celebrate. Calvin?
Well, the Canadians are going to be celebrating. All right, PT, 2nd win in a row. What a great drive today for you.
I need to work on my donuts a little bit. That was embarrassing.
Practice.
That was embarrassing.
Tell us about the run now. Michel looked strong in the middle part of the race, but you responded. But the big scare for you was that stall on the 2nd pit stop.
No, we figured out it was an issue with the pit speed limiter, and we turned it off on the 2nd one and just went out without the pit speed limiter and kept it below 50. But the car was great all day. I mean, I just made one little mistake and went off the track and lost a little bit of time to Michel, but I was able to make it back up pretty easily. And the team did a great job, team players with the best tires out here with Bridgestone, and I was able to pull away whenever I wanted to.
There were some bizarre decisions by other teams running up front on when they pitted. Neil said he was second-guessing himself. Were you asking questions?
Well, I knew that when they called me in and I saw Bourdais didn't come in, I said this is the same scenario as St. Pete. I got back out in fourth. I got Moreno right away, and I knew that I was going to be able to keep the pace with him, so he was pretty much done because I had fresh tires. So, we're making the right calls, and I just got to work on my donuts.
PT, great job. The miles on the bike are working off, mate.
Thank you.
Bob?
Well, let's take one more look at the finishing order in today's race. We just heard from the winner, Paul Tracy, and in second place, Michel Jourdain Jr. But some other drivers here had some very, very good races under their belt. Alex Tagliani, Adrian Fernandez among them.
Yes, indeed, and certainly a great run by Alex Tagliani there for the brand new Rocket Sports team. Fernandez there, good points for him. He'll be delighted, I think, with that fourth place finish, particularly after a disastrous run in St. Pete. Moreno is in sixth. Darren Manning, he did a great job this afternoon. He had a couple of incidents, certainly. One perhaps his fault, one certainly emphatically not. But Patrick Carponche, he made a mistake in the late stages, came back to finish there in 8th place, and I'd say a great call for Alex Young there in 9th place. He kept his nose clean, had a very good fast start considering how little time he had in the car.
Joel Camathias actually making some progress this race with an 11th place finish. Ryan Hunter-Reay's got to be disappointed finishing 2 laps down. Then Dominguez, Jimmy Vasser, Rodolfo Levine, and Mario Haberfeld, who may be the most disappointing guy here.
Could well be, and Bourdais, though, he's so disappointed for Bourdais. He had the second pole position, and this time not able to get to the finish line at all. So he will be crushed there. He will be. He's got to get his act together. His next couple of races. He was still in good shape there, even though once again, as in St. Pete, he was running on a different strategy to Paul Tracy. He'd shown what he could do. He made up a lot of ground, made up a lot of passes, made up all that time that he'd. Well, he hadn't really lost it. He was just on a different strategy, and then he threw it all away with a mistake. So he's got to get settled down and rein himself in a little bit and just get some results.
The 2003 qualifying format will actually allow some drivers to score points through the qualifying positions. Now, Friday and Saturday qualifying at street circuits and road courses will see the fastest driver from each day of a qualifying weekend, or on Friday and Saturday, respectively, awarded 1 championship point. Each day's pole winner is determined by the fastest lap of both Friday and Saturday, so you can score points through qualifying. We've seen some of that. Paul Tracy, your leader, with 43 points for the season. Michel Jourdain Jr. 32 down, and from there you get into a real dogfight all the way from 5th position, 4th, and down to 3rd position. Junqueira and Moreno especially going at it. Moreno didn't really expect to be that high at this point in the year, but he's doing very, very well.
Yes, he is. He's taken advantage of a couple of, certainly, he's been a little bit fortunate, I would say, as Moreno, but he seemed to get his act together towards the end of the race here, as he did in St. Petersburg. You see there that 4 drivers there tied on 6 points here, and what's interesting is, people are just not putting together finishes, not putting together consistent finishes, except for the front 3 in the points. That's Tracy, Jourdain. They've been 1st and 2nd each in each of the first 2 races. And Junqueira, he's been in the top 5 both times out as well. There is Michel Jourdain Jr. getting a rapturous applause here from this Monterrey crowd, and it's well deserved for this very amiable young man.
And the podium finishers once again will go up there and get a huge round of applause from the crowd, especially that guy, Michel Jourdain Jr. Paul Tracy will be up there as well. And that is a beautiful glass trophy. These guys really have done this up first class. In fact, they were speaking with the Chamber of Commerce, CART officials in Monterrey, speaking with the Monterrey Chamber of Commerce, and they have now decided to enlarge this event. They're going to add 2 more homegrown Mexican racing series as support to this race. So the people are absolutely nuts about it. You see a huge hug there between Paul Tracy and second place finisher Jourdain, and this event is off and running and has a very solid future.
Yeah, it's great news, and certainly the Ford Mustangs will be out later on this afternoon. They're always a big crowd pleaser here in Mexico, and it's good to see that more national races will get an opportunity to race alongside both the Toyota Atlantics race, and that race was won this morning by Michael Valiente, and also yesterday the Barber Dodge Pro Series race, second round of their championship was won by a local driver, David Martinez. So the Mexicans here got plenty to cheer about this weekend.
And you're going to have 3 full days, not just of qualifying and practice, but a very very full racing days here as well in the future. And another future race that we just touched on that I want to talk about again, this is in your homeland. And in fact, you can find out more about the Brands Hatch race at www.londonchampcartrophy.com. But talk about the Brands Hatch race, and also the circuit that they have there is just legendary.
Yeah, nice catchy email address there, but certainly that is going to be a great event. And yeah, the Brands Hatch circuit, I saw the cars race back there in 1978, the Champ Cars were last there, and Danny Ongais just set the place abuzz by a speed trap set up on the start-finish line, doing 175 miles an hour across the start-finish line. You can see there the remaining races on the schedule. We've got a Long Beach next in about 3 weeks' time, and then it will be to Kent, to Brands Hatch in Kent, just south of London, and that is going to be a fabulous event.
Well, Danny Ongais set a lot of people abuzz just about every time he ever got into a race car, as I recall. He was one of the great kart drivers of all time. And, you know, you're looking at another one of them. And Paul Tracy came into this series as a backup driver with Penske for a number of years, playing second fiddle to several other drivers. And it took him a while to come into his own. And now we see him on top of the podium for the 21st time.
Yeah, and he really came of age with Penske. He made his first Champ Car start with Dale Coyne Racing at Long Beach in 1992 after winning the previous year's Indy Lights Championship. In 91 it was. He won the Indy Lights Series in 1990. And because of that, he had a great run with Dale Coyne in that one-off ride, and that was really what cemented the ride for him with Marlboro Team Penske. And he spent a long time with Team Penske, got a lot of success there, and had a brief time with Newman House Racing, and since then with Team Cool Green. And this is his 21st